All right. Welcome to the update. It is Friday, May the 17th. I just had a really, really good call with someone who's looking to start a company and has done some interesting stuff so far. And uh, he's an interesting guy to talk to. So not crazy busy day, but did some research, which is really interesting. And I think I'm going to talk about this more maybe tomorrow. But today I wanted to reflect on something like a huge learning that unlocked, I think, a lot of professional growth for me, which is the power of like planning and thoughtful execution. When you're really young and inexperienced, I would say most junior people, when they start things, they tend to just jump right in. So, for example, when I was at school and I had to do a presentation or just a project, I used to just, jump into Google Slides and create slides. Um, and for a lot of things, that is okay, especially very early on in like school. If you have single projects, it's never ideal, which you don't really realize though, or I didn't. So you kind of that's the standard operating mode for a lot of young and junior people. So when they work at a company, they do something similar, right? So gives them a project and a project says them, hey, can you do X, Y, Z? And then they jump right in and they start working. And the more experienced you get, and the more complex um, and high stake the projects you work on get, the more you realize that this doesn't work because you end up I think two things happen, which is your decision making process ends up being bottoms up versus tops down, which is very inefficient because it creates blockers, it creates interdependencies, it ends up in a lot of you end up lacking a lot of clarity. Um, and then the other thing that happens is you often have a lackluster execution because you forget about um you forget about the actual goal, like what you're trying to achieve, um and the criteria. So what the I think and but the problem is this. There is also 100% the other side of this, right? There is excessive planning, um, analysis paralysis, like there's all that, and there is a point at which you just need to fucking go for it and like jump into execution. Um, and I think that's something a lot of very experienced people and companies, especially bigger companies, tend to get wrong, because striking that balance is really hard. Um, but if you're someone who's really junior, next time you have a project that you want to work on, just take like an hour, or depending on the complexity of the project, a day, just thinking about, okay, what am I trying to achieve? Like, what's the goal? And like, what derives from that goal? So what are the design criteria, right? I nowadays I love to run design processes because you're like, okay, what are the goals? What are the things I have to check? And one specific example that I can give you is I've been working on this keynote that I'm giving um, at like a high school, right? And so instead of like I used to when I was in high school myself, jumping just straight into Google Slides and like creating the slides and saying, oh, whatever, like one by one, I started by creating a rough concept. So I've written down, okay, what is my, first of all, like the pre-exercise I always do is like, what do I want to get across? So the exercise I use for that usually, and I literally use that for, I would say even 60% of the emails are right. It's see, feel, do, right? what do I want the person that is reading this or consuming this to do? What do I need them to feel like, or how do I need them to feel like in order for them to do the desired action? And then what do they need to see to feel that and to do that? So I started with that, and then I derived like a concept from it, which is, okay, here are some sections that I'm thinking of. Here's some rough talking points or things I want to cover. Here's how much time I want to spend doing that, right? And then from that, I went even one layer deeper, which is, here's exact script. Like, this is what I want to say, and this is what I want to show while I'm saying this, right? These are the slides that I want to do. And then step by step, you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and you write that script that is really, really, it's like I wrote the script almost like word by word. Almost, not exactly, but like very, very detailed, right? And then only once I was finished with that, I jumped into Keynote or Google Slides or whatever you want to use, and I started creating the slides that I had written out. And I changed it a little bit, right? Like I used maybe at some point I skipped the slide, or I added another one. But based on this, and then I added all the notes that I had, the script in the presenter notes, that feature that Keynote has. And then once you have that, I just went through the Keynote, and I basically pretended I was giving the presentation right now. And then obviously this is really bad, right? Because you don't want to have a script that you're reading off when you're presenting. So the next step then is to edit down. Anyways, so this is just an example of how I did this, right? And how I used like a planning process for a really simple project, right? It's not super high stakes, very low complexity. I'm one of the very few people involved in that, so very few stakeholders. But this made the presentation so much better because I knew always whenever I was creating a slide or whenever I was writing something, what I wanted to accomplish. Even for every little section, I did like a see, feel, do exercise, and I was like, this is what I want them to feel like, right? And then I could, and the other thing that I did that was really helpful is I created like design constraints. So I wanted to make 3 points: 1 point to shock, 1 point to excite, and 1 point to amaze, right? So I created a checklist, and now I can look after at the keynote, this point, this point, this point. And I made like design criteria and constraints about the flow and the style, right? And I can use this as a checklist to check it. So this planning took me like it took me like 2 hours, right? And it made the presentation infinitely better than if I had just jumped into Keynote and just started to do something. And with every single project, and I've realized this because I've recently just, I went back to my high school, to the robotics club that I started there or led there, and helped them with a project. And I realized a lot of the problems they're experiencing comes from the fact that they don't take time to run a design process and some really lightweight planning process on here's what we want to accomplish, here's what we think our constraints are, and then we go into execution mode. So I hope this helps anybody. I think especially if you're a little bit more of a junior person or younger person, or this can really, really, really change your career if you just flick that switch from jumping right in to taking a little bit of a time to plan. Not much, but a little bit. Anyway, if anybody's out there watching to this, remember, keep this to yourself, and I'll see you soon, tomorrow. Have a good day. Bye.